Welcome to this brief walkthrough of a minimum viable project for Caliscope. Beginning with the minimal project folder that is linked to via the wiki on the GitHub site, there are two folders, a calibration folder and a recordings folder. The calibration folder must contain an extrinsic and intrinsic subfolder. The extrinsic subfolder has one video file for each camera source following this naming convention, port underscore and the camera number. If those files are all synchronized frame by frame, you do not need a frame time history, but if they have been recorded asynchronously, you can provide a frame time history for each camera in order to allow the synchronization to happen during post-processing. Within the intrinsic folder, you have one video file for each camera source following the same naming convention, and this does not need to be synchronized. Additionally, there is a recordings folder where each individual recording will take place and it will be held in its own subfolder, and it will have a structure that mimics the extrinsic calibration structure. With that out of the way, we can go ahead and launch Caliscope. Opening up that project, at which point it will create a configuration file and initially tell us that it doesn't have the files it needs. It needs to know how many cameras we intend to use, and so it can do a quick check to make sure that the naming conventions work or that they're followed. The calibrations are not complete at this point. We need to begin by establishing the Charuco board that will be used. I am using the smallest board possible and inverted just to make it easier to print out. So you can save a copy of the Charuco board to print out. But now Caliscope knows which board to look for. So here it can see the corners from this calibration board. So now that those are being properly seen, we can go ahead and set it to auto calibrate, and it will begin pulling in the corner data that it needs in order to perform the intrinsic calibration. And now, with that calibration done, the root mean square error is pretty decent, below 0.2, and we can just double check that the distortion looks reasonable here. It does. Camera 2, the distortion looks reasonable. Camera 3, the distortion again looks pretty reasonable. And these three cameras are all the same make and model, so you can also just do a quick check of the parameters here and see that they are pretty similar, which is what you would expect. So with that intrinsic calibration done, we will reload the workspace, at which point it becomes possible to calibrate the capture volume. So clicking on this button, we'll begin to see the synchronized video. All right, and so with that completed, we can reload the workspace in order to load up the capture volume. And then here, the corners of the Charuco board will be visualized, so you can select an individual frame to use for setting the origin. Which may simplify some of the post-processing. So the origin set, we are in post-processing, and we will do the entire holistic model, and can begin processing that. And then here we are with a simple wireframe model of triangulated points, and the 3D data associated with this model will be stored within recordings and in a subfolder named after the tracker that was used during the processing stage. All right. Thank you.